guest speaker today has been an active community leader for 14 years. Now, if we had the time, I'd mention the fact that she was president of the West Cupertino Homeowners Association, that she was a Super Schools Foundation co-founder, that she was a Rotary Youth Leadership Award Committee, that she was a Route 85 Task Force chairman, that she's on the YMCA Board of Directors. But then, my goodness, there's too much. We have to move right on. We just don't have the time. So what we'll do is a few of the highlights about our guest speaker today. She's been a member of the Cupertino City Council since 1987, right? She has been the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Citizen of the Year. That was in 1984. And I might add that in 1984, she also got the award of being the Cupertino Civic and City Service awardee. That was the year that was for Barbara Koppel. But wait, other outstanding things were to come. In 1990, she was the chair of the Measure T campaign, which I think has been mentioned today and many of you were involved with. This was very successful, as you know, with more than 2/3 of Cupertino citizens saying yes to open space, and of course the chamber endorsed it. You know that. To give you an idea of the detail to which our speaker will go to do something that's very successful, every sign in Cupertino had this on it the morning after the election. Can you imagine how many signs there were? And she was personally responsible, along with Betty Bidwell, I believe, for many of those. You know who I'm talking about. She's been here. She's been a wonderful friend and member of the community. Our own mayor, the Honorable Barbara Koppel, giving us the State of the City address.
Well, you guys better take a break, get up, leave if you want, because I've got a lot to say about our great city. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Chamber for this opportunity to give some of my views of the past year, as well as my vision for the decade of the 90s here in Cupertino. Usually you're supposed to start your speech off with a joke or something to make us all chuckle. Well, I don't think any of us feel like chuckling today. The world situation is very grim indeed. I know you'll join with me in praying that the conflict in the Middle East will be over soon, and that all our young people stationed there, our sons and daughters, will come home. I'm especially excited to be giving this address in the Quinlan Center. Being the first mayor to be giving a State of the City address in this spanking new, beautiful building sums up one of the most exciting aspects of what has happened in our city in 1990. This year may be the year of the goat and the sheep, but last year most certainly was the year of recreation and open space in our city. And this beautiful site for our meeting today brings that point home dramatically. This 27,000 square foot building provides space for a variety of community events, including aerobics and childcare. It's the home of Cupertino Community Services, as well as our Historical Society. The Citizen of the Year Banquet and Ball, as well as the Gala, sponsored by the school district, will be held here. Well, we might make a mistake here. Our kids haven't been left out of the year of recreation and open space. Jollyman Park construction has started. This will include 1 baseball diamond, 2 soccer fields, complete with a snack shack and restrooms. There is no doubt the biggest success of 1990 was the overwhelming passage of Measure T by our voters. As you know, Measure T was a 2.4% utility tax to purchase Blackberry Farm, consisting of 35 acres of picnic grounds, a golf course, and a swimming pool, as well as the purchase of Fremont Older Elementary School, which consists of 11 acres to be developed as a youth sports complex. The 68.4% yes vote clearly shows that this community cares about its open space its environment, and its future. Our campaign was a classic example of what a community can do when we all work together. Personally, it was great to see what can happen when you truly believe in something and work as hard as you can to bring it about. The hard work of all of those dedicated to the idea and the project really showed. On the November ballot, Measure T was the only utility tax to pass in the entire state. It was one of only 2 local tax measures that passed in this county. No state bonds or other tax measures even carried in this county on November's ballot. What does this tell us? It tells me that people have confidence in their local government, that people care about preserving the good things about Cupertino for the future, and that they can affect in a very positive way the direction of their community. 1990 was also a year of many accomplishments on the business front. I believe it was the year our relationship with the Chamber of Commerce grew even stronger. Your endorsement and financial support of Measure T showed that. This support shows that you, the Chamber, have a broader perspective of Cupertino, that the business community not only cares about business, but about the direction and our quality of life. I'm very proud of your role in Measure T and want you to know that we on Council and staff appreciate your cooperation, support, and involvement in city affairs. In other business developments in the city, Tandem became a major landowner in Cupertino. They purchased 80 acres from Valco, showing us they are committed to staying and growing here. This purchase includes Valco Village, as well as the vacant properties east of Wolf Road. Apple also took a big bite out of the local real estate. As you know, they are co-owners with Sobrato Development of 850,000 square feet of a recently approved R&D campus at Highway 80 and De Anza Boulevard. When completed, this will be a landmark complex and a further commitment of Apple of making Cupertino its permanent home and headquarters. Several new businesses such as the Warehouse, Mel's Original Diner, and Croutons will soon be here. The Target Shopping Center has added additional stores. We've had major facelifts on 2 shopping centers that have aesthetically improved our city, Cupertino Village, formerly called Valco Village, and Orchard Valley Marketplace, complete with palm trees. Couldn't resist it. On the community college front, De Anza recently held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a much-needed parking structure. It will accommodate 1,469 cars. 1990 featured a variety of accomplishments in other areas of our city life. A task force consisting of the Chamber of Commerce, the school districts, the YMCA, and the city established an innovative Cupertino child care policy. There were several steps forward in the area of conservation. Our citywide conservation program for water was extremely successful. Our monthly average reduction was 29% compared to 1987 use. That's probably because a lot of us quit flushing our toilets. This probably helped the sale of perfume in the city. The city itself reduced its water use enough to allow us to maintain, to a moderate degree, Memorial Park and its ponds, as well as minimum landscaping here at the Quinlan Center. We continue to conserve more water than any other city in North County. In fact, actually, of the 15 cities in this county, there's only one that on occasion conserves more than us. Former Mayor Barbara Rogers initiated a plan whereby residents could purchase trees for their yards at a reduced rate. This was done with the assistance of the Public Works Department. 500 trees were purchased and have been planted throughout the city. Another step in preserving and helping our environment. One of the things I've stressed as part of my council activities is community identity. A few things that happened in '90 that I hope cemented that idea of community feeling were the holiday Peace on Earth banners throughout the city, the second annual holiday sing-along, and the Christmas lighting at City Park. Some other examples of our attempt to promote citywide identity, which was previously mentioned before by Sheriff Gillingham, that the words Cupertino are now on our fire trucks and that they will this year appear on the sheriff's cars. Also, we will be having our first annual Community Day at Blackberry Farm. This facility will be open for a day to all of us. We will have complete access to the swimming pools and the picnic areas. We'll also have several types of entertainment. It will be a real community family day, and you're all invited. Speaking of community identity and the future, here's another exciting development, a biggie. After years of waiting, we have been successful in twisting the arms of the feds and have been able to advance the construction of our much-needed post office by 8 years. It will be located on Stevens Creek Boulevard, just west of the railroad tracks in the Monte Vista area. Groundbreaking for this 33,000 square foot facility, which is triple the size of our present one, is February the 12th at 11 a.m., and you're all invited. When you realize that Cupertino receives the largest number of pieces of mail per capita in Northern California, with an antiquated, outdated post office, it makes you realize how lucky we are to be able to expedite the construction of this desperately needed new facility. A lot of the credit for this goes to Congresswoman Barbara Boxer, and she will be there that day to cheer us on. Continuing our journey through 1990, in the arts, we had the unveiling of the mural at City Hall depicting the history of Cupertino. Our Fine Arts Commission was instrumental in researching this and commissioned Scott Sayre to paint it. It's a wonderful addition to City Hall. This year, we were also able to convince Heritage Cable TV to provide both our award-winning government and public access channels. So now, City Council meetings are available to all residents. And you must be watching because we hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, has this become an alternative to Monday Night Football? Is your city council supplanted Joe Montana in your affections? Why do I doubt that? Excuse me. Another happy event in 90. Earlier last year, we resolved the Highway 85 Sunnyvale-Saratoga interchange crisis. We're all happy campers. The result? The freeway will be depressed, and I won't be. Last, but certainly not least, we had an outstanding goals committee working together for several months. One of the exciting new concepts they came up with was the Grand Boulevard. Those of you who participated should be very proud of the futuristic concepts that you have proposed. Many of these will certainly be incorporated into the upcoming general plan review. While we all think changes happen slowly, you can see this was quite an eventful year of positive change for the city. The Goals Committee work and its spotlight on the future seems to me an ideal way to take us into the decade of the 90s. I'd like to preface my remarks about the 90s with a story about English economist and philosopher John Stuart Mill. John woke up one morning with an overwhelming feeling that the answer to the question of the ages had come to him in the middle of the night. But he forgot what it was. Sound familiar? He then placed a quill and paper next to his bed. This was in the days before Post-its and ballpoint pens. And a few mornings later, he awoke with a similar feeling, yet this time he found on the paper in his own writing, "Think in different terms." I believe that the message he penned to himself has a lot of significance for us as city officials, business people, and citizens. We are entering a new period, one which will be as challenging as anything we have faced in the past. It is a time in which seemingly infinite government demands have bucked heads with finite resources. The well, in so many cases, has run dry of funds. And being in city government today is like sleeping under a blanket that is too short. We simply don't have the resources to cover our needs. So we have to cover a foot to stay warm, or put the blanket over an arm. We have to think in terms of priorities. We have to be creative. You can see this new funding dilemma as the glass half empty or half full. I believe, however, in the glass being half full. I believe that we can meet the challenges that lay before us, just as John Stuart Mill directed himself to do. Think differently, in a new, exciting way that will result in all of us increasing our sense of community, working more closely, and feeling as if we've accomplished a great deal together. I think there's a lack of awareness by the public of some of the central problems facing cities today. This can inhibit local government's ability to respond positively to the needs and problems of our citizens. The challenge facing cities is the job of increasing the public's awareness of the workings and business of government. Along with a new way of doing things, guiding Cupertino into the future also requires a greater sense of community on the part of its citizens and a great deal of creative leadership. First, a sense of community. Cupertino has not really been tested. We've enjoyed a period of financial strength during the 80s, while other cities and counties have struggled to make ends meet. We will, however, be tested in the 90s, and it really is adversity, not good times, that test any community. A community is much more than a place on the map. It is a state of mind, a shared vision, a common fate, shared hopes and dreams. Measure T was so personally rewarding, not only because we succeeded in saving valuable open space, but because it brought the entire community together. I saw this community bond together, and it is this sense of community that I would like to see us expand on. This is a tremendously important issue, and one that I hope will gain a foothold, working together to achieve common purposes. Cupertino has been changing, and we are very different than what we were 10 years ago. We've witnessed unprecedented change in our demographics. We have ethnic diversity throughout the city. This makes it even more important that we reach out and take a look. Take a look at who we are and give more time and thought to how we can build a stronger community, one that works together and leverages the strengths of every segment of our city. A great community has great leaders and a great staff. I believe it is our responsibility to help foster a climate that encourages new leadership. We need hundreds, thousands of people who can be depended upon to rise to the public interest as we move through the 90s. And some of that is already happening here. We're pleased to have so many citizens applying for commission appointments, 18 for the Planning Commission, 15 for Parks and Recreation. That's just a sample of interested citizens who want to serve this community. It will take a strong community, strong leadership, and a new way of thinking to address the major issues in the future. Let me take just a few moments to talk about specific issues that must be shared goals for all of us. Fiscal health. We enter the 90s under tightening fiscal constraints, yet demand for expanded or new government activities continue. The result is considerable stress, as witnessed by the current budget discussions in Sacramento. The 90s will most certainly be another decade of fiscal constraints. How would I characterize the city's general fund? I'd call it healthy, but not fat. Revenue and expenditures will continue to be closely monitored to get the most out of every city dollar. This is especially important during these times of economic uncertainty. Sales tax collection is the city's largest revenue source and is about 5% greater than last year. The utility tax, implemented January 1st, will provide funds to purchase Fremont Elder as well as Blackberry Farm. General fund expenditures are 35% of the current budget, which does not provide for the cost required by SB 2557. This is a law passed by the 1990 legislature that authorized the county to charge cities for collecting property taxes and the booking of prisoners. That cost is estimated to cost our city between $175,000 to $200,000. The League of California Cities has taken the position of having the depreciation schedule on the vehicle license fee deferred for at least 1 year, possibly 2. This recommendation is picking up steam in Sacramento. If this passes, it would offset the $345 million the state passed on to the counties to charge for the booking fees. Governor Wilson, in his budget message, also supports this approach. Excuse me. So fiscally, I see tightened belts, careful spending, and a climate of great fiscal restraint. The freewheeling 80s are over. And the 90s are a time when creativity, caution, and community cooperation will be called upon to meet the financial needs in Cupertino. Housing. Since 1980, according to the Bay Area Council, Santa Clara County has added 183,000 jobs, but only enough housing for 150,000 workers. This has served to further the imbalance between jobs and houses in our community. We need your help in finding new opportunities and strategies for housing in our city. Unless we work together, the problem will be just too large to solve. We need to work with industry and voluntary organizations to create new and affordable housing here in Cupertino. Last week, I went on a tour of 3 homeless shelters in this county. The first was the Family Living Center at Agnew State Hospital. This building is leased out to the county to shelter mostly employed families, known as the working poor. I prefer to call them the working homeless. 33 families live in this one building. Would you believe that a family of 6 lives in just 1 bedroom? The mother is a registered nurse, the dad is an accountant, and they have 4 children, all in 1 room. That gives you some idea of the desperate straits we're here right in this county. Here's another indication. When you consider that a family of 4 living in Santa Clara County on $35,700 a year is considered low income, you know we have a serious problem. The next homeless shelter we visited was the Sanctuary, which houses single adults. 4 women share 1 bedroom. Most of these women are working adults trying to find affordable housing. The housing they've found isn't a long-term solution. It's a sanctuary, a stopgap measure until they can find more permanent housing. Lastly, we toured the Armory, the state's largest homeless facility located on Heading. Many there are also working homeless. 300 residents find shelter there night after night. I've used these examples to underscore the desperate housing situation for our county. What was most surprising and unsettling to me was the fact that so many of our homeless have jobs. That's not the traditional view of those who are homeless, but it tells us how difficult it is for folks living in this area to enter our housing market. This state of affairs is bound to affect productivity in our high-tech corporate environment. Employee motivation, quality work, and company productivity can't last too long if you're commuting to the Bay Area from as far away as Los Banos and Tracy. And our corporate neighbors tell us that isn't an uncommon occurrence in our community. Most Cupertino residents purchased their houses when they were affordable. Many of us in this room could not afford to buy our homes today. I couldn't on my salary. That isn't a complaint about salary as mayor. It's a labor of love. But it is a comment on the grim state of affairs in the housing market. Because only 9% of our people in the Valley can afford to buy a home at all, there is a greater demand for rental units. A survey conducted in Cupertino just a year ago found that average rents for 1-bedroom apartments were $737 per month, 2 bedrooms, $880. That's more than many of us pay for our mortgages for a 3- to 5-bedroom house. For this reason, the city recently adopted a general plan housing element with a policy which will study the connection between the development of land and the creation of housing need. I hope this study will provide solutions that will result in local government and industry working together to solve the problem. I believe that's the kind of cooperation and creativity it will take to make a difference. I'd like to end this discussion on housing with a quote from the late Hubert Humphrey. One of the privileges which we should have as American citizens is at least the privilege of living in reasonably decent accommodations. I do not think anyone is asking for palaces or for big, beautiful apartments, but we are asking for sanitary, safe dwelling units with adequate space in which to take care of a family. In the 90s, we will have to work harder than ever, especially in Santa Clara County and Cupertino, to make this commonest of American dreams a reality. Here's another issue that isn't as glamorous, but is probably the greatest challenge for America in the 90s. It's the issue of garbage, more politely known as solid waste. As many of you know, AB 939, mandated by the state, requires that each city reduce waste by 25% by the year 1995 and 50% by the year 2000. We've already initiated a curbside recycling program and are hoping to enhance that by providing more services such as composting, cardboard, and extending the entire program to multifamily and apartment complexes. This summer, we're considering instituting inverted rates, the same process we've used with our water rates, to encourage recycling by having one can service and charging for additional cans at a higher rate. To be successful, the overall program must include the cooperation of the business community, since 55% of our waste comes from business and 45% from residential. Cupertino City staff is currently working with the major employers in the city to create a consolidated recycling program that business can buy into and live with. I'd like to commend the major employers in our town for their own recycling efforts. AB 939 will reward previous recycling efforts. Therefore, Cupertino is fortunate in being a step ahead in meeting the requirements of AB 939. We also hope that the recycling center at De Anza College can be relocated in the near future. If you have any ideas along these lines, we'd like to hear from you. And now to one of the issues that residents in Cupertino call out as one of our most pressing problems, the big T word, traffic. The California voters approved Proposition 111, a gas tax increase requiring that a congestion management planning agency be formed in each county. This agency is required to monitor the elements of the congestion management plan. The board is dominated by San Jose, which has 5 of a total of 12 votes. Cupertino shares 1 vote with 4 other cities, Campbell, Los Gatos, Montecito, and Saratoga. The congestion management plan looks at a lot of different issues pertaining to traffic, transportation, and land use. It involves a system for measuring traffic density along Stevens Creek and De Anza Boulevard. It also requires the city to come up with a program to evaluate the impact of new development on our regional system. This is something none of us are looking forward to, a regional government making some control over our city's land use decisions. We can't wait for that to happen. The most relevant part of the congestion management plan for the business community is the traffic demand management requirements, known as TDM. As many of you already know, each city will be required to develop a TDM plan that would result in less traffic. Recently, Cupertino had the opportunity to take these futuristic TDM measures into the present when we approved a TDM program for the Sobrato Apple property. I think we came up with some innovative concepts that both Sobrato and Apple bought into. It encourages the use of van pooling and carpooling. It asks the companies to install conditions that will encourage bicycling to work, establishes a subsidized transit pass program for employees. It allows people to work at home by providing computer terminals in their residences. It guarantees employees who use alternate transportation a ride home or to their park and ride lot at no cost. Traffic demand management will change the way employees get to and from work in our city. I encourage all business people to learn more about it and think of ways we can all reduce one of our city's #1 concerns, the Silicon Valley traffic maze. I couldn't enumerate issues without talking about the Clean Air Act. This was mandated by the federal government and implemented by the Regional Air Quality Board in conjunction with MTC, and will develop requirements to reduce the pollutants and improve our air quality by 1997. In the next 7 months, the Bay Area will be classified as serious or severe. The classification selected will dictate the strategies we'll have to use to meet the Clean Air Act. Anybody want to take over here? If we're labeled severe, we may see such things as toll gates, increased gas taxes, parking fees, higher fees while traveling at peak hours. In short, a dramatic change to the lifestyle we're used to in the Bay Area. All of the above transportation legislation could result in a great deal more emphasis on mass transit, light rail, and other forms of transportation. Another, not very glamorous subject, but one that is important to our area's well-being, is the non-point source legislation. This is an effort by all cities in the county to keep pollutants from entering the bay from storm runoff. It will require that the cleanup be made at the source and not after it reaches the bay. And finally, a few words about Route 85 to add to the millions that have already been said. We still have one unresolved issue. That's the access from northbound 280 to southbound 85 and the exit onto Stevens Creek Boulevard. The final configuration of the interchange as designed will preclude that movement. In our agreement with the traffic authority, there is a $3 million reserve to mitigate this impact. However, the traffic authority does not have the necessary funds to complete this interchange. It can only accomplish one half of the design. This will leave the present access to Stevens Creek Boulevard untouched. And that's good right now. Future date when, I don't know. Finances, housing, transportation, pollution problems. These are some of the central issues we face next year and in the 90s. It's enough to make you want to put your head under the covers. Or like Rip Van Winkle, sleep for 10 years. Or if you look at life as I do, as someone drinking from a glass that's half full rather than half empty, you can think of all these things as exciting challenges, as ways we can work together more closely, as opportunities to be a leader either in your own life or in the community, as a way to get involved in the world around you. That's about how I view the recent past and my vision for the future. I'd like to leave you with a few final thoughts. As we move into the last 9 years of the 20th century, years in which events seem to be moving at an ever-accelerating pace, we need a new frame of reference. We need a new way of thinking, a greater sense of community, and some very creative leadership. The good news is that the cities still have choices. There are important forces at work that are making cities change. Well, we can't change our location, and most of us wouldn't want to. We can change what we do and how we do it, and we can work together to make that happen. Cupertino reflects our values and aspirations for what a community should be. These characteristics are incorporated in our Citizens' Goals Report and will be presented in our general plan. Finally, Cupertino is a city ready for the future. Our challenge is to build a stronger community, one in which all of us will be involved in making the choices necessary for a more enriching quality of life. As we move ahead, I look forward to working with each and every one of you. There is no question in my mind that Cupertino is truly a city that cares. We care about our people, about our environment, about our quality of life. I care, you care. And I thank you for showing and caring by being here today. Thanks for allowing me to speak on my favorite subject, Cupertino, a city that cares. God bless you all.